part of being focused is being able to be decisive and making a decision and moving on. And maybe it wasn't the right decision, but it was a decision, and you can always go back and revisit it. So giving yourself permission to make a mistake, but really being decisive so you can actually finish a task, check it off the list, and move on to the next.
You're listening to episode 147 of the Fitness Business Podcast. We'd like to thank this month's premier podcast partner, One Fit Stop, the complete fitness business software that's perfect for studios, gyms, and clubs. To find out more, go to onefitstop.com. Welcome along to this week's show. I think you know that behind the scenes of the show, we work really hard to make sure that the guests that we interview each week provide you with information that's going to strengthen your business and help you grow as a fitness professional. And I am so excited to tell you that we have something really special for you this week. This week's special guest is Lisa Bodell. Lisa is a best-selling author and the founder and CEO of futurethink. She's helped thousands of senior leaders at companies like Google, Pfizer, and Lockheed Martin get to the work that matters so that they can leapfrog the competition. Lisa's latest book, Why Simple Wins, shows organizations and individuals how to eradicate complexity and embrace simplicity as their new operating system. Her first book, provocatively titled Kill the Company, started this movement for eliminating low-value work to create space for change to happen. Now, if you're listening right now thinking that the name sounds very familiar, then chances are you have heard that Lisa Bodell is one of the keynote speakers at IRSA 2018, and her day one keynote just happens to be sponsored by one of our podcast partners, MyZone. I caught up with Lisa in late 2017 and we chatted about embracing a simplicity mindset. We spoke about how to focus on what really matters and using a compass versus a to-do list. Before we transition into the main interview, I wanted to thank this month's premier podcast partner. One Fit Stop's scheduling, client management, programming, and payment collection tools will set your business up for success. To find out more, head over to onefitstop.com. Lisa, welcome along to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
I am incredibly excited. Now, I've got to tell you that in the time that I was doing a little bit of research for our interview today, one of the pieces that I jumped online and had a look at was, of course, your TED Talk. And I have got to tell you that you are the most incredibly captivating speaker. It was not only a joy to listen to the content that you're talking about, but it was actually a joy just to listen to you speak and to watch you speak. So I am so excited for IRSA next year.
Oh, I'm excited too. And thank you for those kind words. I appreciate it.
Now, you've written a book called Why Simple Wins. So can you start by telling us, do most people generally overcomplicate business?
Here's the simple answer. Yes. Most of complexity that we experience every day is self-imposed and unnecessary. And that's the bad news. The good news is that we as individuals have control over it. And so every time we put in place an extra meeting, report, call, PowerPoint, process, and those things are driven by personal behaviors, risk, fear, power, control. And they're things that we actually can take back, we can take control of, and we as leaders can eradicate. So the good news is, while we create a lot of the complexity, we also have control over many of the simple things that we do every day and can eliminate.
You've got a simplification toolkit. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and how it actually works?
Yes. It's interesting. I had no intention of creating a toolkit, just a book. All I wanted to do was write a book. That was enough. But we did all this research, and it was amazing to me how much research there was on complexity and how little there was on simplicity. It's like people can tell you exactly what the problem is, but they're really bad at understanding what the solutions should be. And I said, I'm someone who's very practical. And if I'm going to help someone with a problem, I want to give them the tools to solve it. So we took the time to also create tools that people could actually start getting things done. And they had to be simple. And what they were designed to do was create awareness of where your problem was. So there's like a diagnostic, there's a task diary that lets you diagnose if you actually are spending your time on valuable things or not. And there's action tools too, like 100 questions to simplify. how to create a simplification code of conduct with your team so we know what behaviors to do more of or less of if they're creating complexity. There's tools like killing stupid rules that are really easy to start killing rules right away and making the space for change. And there's even a whole tool on tactics to simplify where you can steal best practices from hundreds of other people around the world. So it's all designed to be simple, easy to use in your next status meeting or at your desk, so you can get going killing complexity right now.
I truly believe that any business can benefit from this, because when I was listening to another interview that you did, and you were talking about the killing stupid rules, and we're going to chat about that in a second, but it was funny because as you were talking, I was reflecting back to my corporate days, and I was thinking to myself, oh, I can relate to so much of this, and I wish that someone had that meeting with me that said, okay, let's just put it out on the table and let's talk about all the stupid rules that we have in this business right now, because guaranteed there are so many things that we were doing at that time that was slowing us down. And I know that is the case for so many fitness businesses, because we do get caught up in all of the processes and that type of thing. So let's talk about that, identifying stupid rules, which you talk about in the book. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that, and perhaps even a few examples that you've encountered and why they should be eliminated?
Yes, absolutely. I will tell you, this is our number one tool that people love, or technique. It's not really a tool. It's teaching people that they have the permission and the ability to kill stupid rules. And it's not that, that they're always putting stupid rules in place. It's that many rules just outlive their time, and we never go back and kind of weed the garden. So making a practice of, I said earlier, deleting things, but, killing things is really key because it creates the space for more meaningful work. So killing stupid rules is great because especially with yourself and with your team, it forces you to go and say, hey, what's not working? And what would really happen if we just got rid of them? And what you do is you get your team in a room or have yourself think about, if you could kill any two rules that are holding you back from doing more meaningful things or reaching your goals, what would they be and why? And what you'll find is you will come up with more than two rules. You'll come up with many. And a lot of them aren't rules. A lot of them are assumptions around how you think work has to happen. So they might be meetings, processes, reports, decision-making structures, and those are things that you can kill right away. And what I found really interesting is whenever we do this with teams, even the CEOs get into it because it drives efficiency, right? And CEOs and leaders love efficiency, but it also drives morale and culture, that people know that it's their job to get rid of stuff that's inefficient. And when they identify it, they have permission to let it go. So, I'll even give you some examples that were great. Like we were working with a pharmaceutical company, and one guy gave an example of, why is there this rule that I'm able to approve $5,000 tech purchases, but when it comes to hotels, I have to get permissions to go above $200, right? When you say it out loud, everyone goes, yeah, that's pretty stupid. Why is that? Or somebody said, why do we have to have status meetings every week for an hour, even when we don't fill the time? And everyone said, you're right. It's just always been on the calendar. And so in that instance, they actually said, oh, I don't want to kill that meeting, but why don't we just do it every other week? So that alone saves time because it allowed them to question why and give permission to either cut back or kill. And I know you would be able to find a million things, and everyone listening to this could do the same thing. It's really cathartic.
I love the concept of also giving that responsibility to people within your team. Because I think quite often when we are the business manager or we're the business owner, we have a tendency to take a helicopter view on a lot of things. And sometimes we are not necessarily exposed to some of those little rituals or habits or processes that are eating away time. So by turning that responsibility and giving our team the opportunity to say, hey, here are a few stupid rules that we're encountering day by day, it gives them that little bit of autonomy, doesn't it? And that little bit of say in what's going on in the business, and then it gives you as the manager or the owner exposure to things that, as I said, perhaps you haven't been aware of.
And you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly right. And what's interesting about it is it's empowerment in a good way. Most people, when they hear their leader say you're empowered to do something, all they hear is, oh boy, he just added more to my to-do list. And I don't want to be empowered. In fact, I want to be less empowered. But when you empower them to kill things or get rid of things or eliminate a barrier that really drives them crazy, they are They are just so excited. They love you that much more as a manager, and they like their job more. So it's the best kind of empowerment you could give people, is creating the space to do more valuable things.
Yeah, I absolutely love that example. Thank you so much for going into that with us, Lisa. Out of interest, have you ever worked with any fitness organizations or health-based organizations and gone through this process with them?
I have. In fact, here what we had done is we had worked on a health program actually with New York schools, which was very interesting. So not necessarily fitness centers, but also doing health and wellness programs within companies like Time Warner, for example. So how can we actually create, mind, body, spirit, and efficiency all the way around as a total human being? And the way that we did that with them is we said it's not just about physical wellness, but mental wellness. And part of the things that drag people down emotionally are all these burdens and rules. So that's why, I say this as people think of it as like a business exercise, but it's also a wellness exercise, getting rid of these barriers that hold us back.
It's funny because what's coming to my mind as we're speaking is in the fitness industry at the moment, we've kind of seen this movement, I would say, in the last 6 to 12 months where there is more and more often there is a demand for us to supply shorter, more efficient workouts. And that's largely due to the fact that, so many of our clients don't have time to spend an hour working out or 45 minutes working out. So a lot of facilities have introduced these kind of 30-minute quick hit classes. So in our business for our clients, we have listened to that feedback and we've found a way to adapt for our customers. So really, I see this as a way of doing that internal cleanup and doing that same process for our business and saying, okay, how can we be more efficient? What ways or things can we implement to bring the time down in order to still get the job done, but to do it in a more efficient way in a shorter time?
Oh, I love this example. I love this example because people have what we call adult ADD, and everyone wants things literally what used to be a 2-day learning into a 1-day learning into now what we call micro learning. They want everything in 1-hour sessions, or all the videos we create right now around simplicity are no longer than 60 to 90 seconds. And it's good and bad. It's people want things, immediate results that might not be realistic. On the other hand, the people creating these workouts like yourself or me creating these learning modules is it really makes you focus on what matters.
Yeah.
And you cut away all the noise. And so there's pluses and there's minuses, but what this really does is it gets us focused.
Yes, I absolutely love that. It's funny, in one of the interviews that you did, I think it was on a podcast that you did, you referred to yourself, I think it was as a wardrobe or a closet organizer for businesses. Was that the term?
Yes.
Yeah. And as soon as I heard you say that, I'm like, yes, that's exactly what this is all about. This is like someone coming through your business and just going, right, okay, we're going to throw away the old stuff, the stuff that doesn't work, it doesn't look good anymore, and we're just going to stick to the stuff that really works.
That's exactly right.
It's such a good analogy. Now, I'm hoping that you can actually take us through some tips on really embracing the simplicity mindset.
I'd be happy to. And, we did all this research in terms of what are the skills that a chief simplifier has. And one of the things I'd love to encourage everyone on this podcast listening to do is become your own chief simplification officer. And to do that, you need to have a few skills. And so this is what you really need to embrace, in my opinion. The first is having a minimalist mindset. So everything you do is about simplifying, eliminating, deleting, etc. So how can you get in the mindset that less has value, not more? And then the next thing is focus. And, once you parse away the noise and you start to minimize things, you get focused on what really matters. And part of a focus is not having any distractions. So don't multitask, work on one thing at a time, get a job done and have a satisfying outcome, and then move on. And then, the final thing I'd say, first is minimalist, second is focus, the third is decisiveness. And one of the biggest things we find, for example, within big companies is, yes, people complain about meetings and emails and PowerPoints and all that kind of day-to-day fatigue. But what really drives them crazy is the lack of decisiveness. And part of being focused is being able to be decisive. And making a decision and moving on. And maybe it wasn't the right decision, but it was a decision, and you can always go back and revisit it. So giving yourself permission to make a mistake, but really being decisive so you can actually finish a task, check it off the list, and move on to the next.
Lisa, can we go back to that number 2 there? You talked about focus. And I think this is a really interesting area to explore because I don't know. I know for me personally in my career, one of the things that I was brought up doing is, okay, you've got to learn to multitask. You've got to be able to do, multiple different things at the one time. That's going to make you more efficient. But we're kind of flipping that on its head, right? We're saying, actually, no, stop and focus on one key area.
You need to focus on one key area. And the reason why is, the science shows us that actually multitasking doesn't work. It actually diminishes our ability to do any task effectively versus if you had just done it on its own. And so it is actually more productive, effective, and in the long run, more efficient for you to do one thing at a time because you really give it its due. It's like, a lot of the organizational experts will tell you to touch everything once. Don't touch it and come back to it. To open your email, come back to it. Address it, open it, read it again later and come back to it. Just do it. And the problem with multitasking is it allows us to do everything kind of half versus whole. So I think that there's this kind of oxymoron that happens with multitasking. I think in some rote things where those are things that you just know how to do, brush your teeth and I don't know. Those things are fine. But when it comes to really good business things, I think multitasking can be a hindrance.
Lisa, one of the things that I have learned over the years, and it's been largely through this podcast, is to move from having a to-do list that is, 2 pages long to just focusing. And what I do now is I have just 3 key tasks that I know that I must complete each day. And that's part of my morning ritual is going through and doing that. What's your advice on that? Do you have a morning ritual or do you have a way that you recommend that people should start their day so that they can keep that focus?
Well, you are officially a chief simplification officer. I love that you're focused on your 3 key outcomes versus your to-do list, because one of the things I always say to people is, being a simplifier isn't about, yes, it's a productivity exercise, but it isn't about doing more on your to-do list. It's about knowing what should be on that list in the first place. Because I know a lot of people that get a lot done during the day, but when you ask them what they did or they accomplished that day, it's funny how they can't seem to name anything. Like, God, I did so much, but I can't really remember, I can't really recall it. It felt like I was busy. I know I'm exhausted. And that's because I don't think they're really accomplishing meaningful tasks. They're just checking things off a list. So your ritual, which I think is great, is what are the 3 big things I need to tackle today? That's focus. And that's really a compass versus a to-do list. And I like that. That's a very good ritual.
Brilliant. Well, I've got to tell you, before I started chatting to you, I said that I was really excited about your URSA presentation. And now after chatting to you, I'm even more excited about your URSA presentation. So do you want to share with all of the listeners of FBP, what are you going to be speaking at URSA? Give us a bit of an overview.
Yes, absolutely. So there's going to be a couple things. I'm going to talk about making simplification a habit and how so you can get to the work that matters. And one of the things that we're going to do around that is talking about things around killing your company. And what's really interesting about that is so much of what we do today around innovation is we focus on the mundane and we spend a lot of time not clearing the space for change to happen. And by giving people permission to kill rules, kill meetings, and actually kill their company, which allows them to actually attack the weaknesses in their company, eliminate them, and then make the space for change to do more valuable things, that is really going to be the focus. I want to be productive. I want to teach people about less is more, and I want to give them really practical things they can do to make that space for change to happen.
Lisa, I just want to say thank you so much. It's a real honor to have you on the show.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Team Rockstar Fit is an award-winning mastermind team that helps fit pros lead happy and balanced lives. Get mentoring and support. Learn how to grow your business online with Beachbody. You can apply for a free consultation today at teamrockstarfit.com. Once again, I want to say a super big thank you to Lisa for coming on the show. I'm sure that you'll agree that this past 20 minutes is all the incentive that you need to make sure that you get along to URSA in San Diego this year. Her keynote session is happening at 10:30 a.m. on Wednesday, the 21st of March. For more details about this year's conference, you can go to the show notes where we've included a direct link to the URSA homepage. Now, while we're on the topic, it seems like perfect timing to remind you that our next FBP family meetup is happening that very same morning. Wednesday, March 21st, bright and early, we're meeting at 5:50 a.m. at the main entrance of the Marriott Marquis San Diego Marina. We're going to walk, we're going to chat for about 45 minutes and then return back to the Marriott by 6:50 a.m. To register for the walk, and of course it's free, go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. At the top of the homepage, you're going to see a link there that it says URSA FBP Family Meetup. Click on that link and register right there. I look forward to seeing you.
Precore Quickfire 5.
This week's Precore Quickfire 5 guest is Dom Dos Remedios, the CEO and owner of PT Academy. Dom, welcome along and thank you so much for joining us for the Precore Quickfire 5.
Thanks for having me.
Let's get cracking straight into it. Tell everyone, why do you do what you do?
Look, I love combining my two passions, which is fitness and education. I'm a phys ed teacher by trade, and I particularly love the philosophy and content behind the PTA Global business. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
And what's one ritual that helps you become better at what you do?
I've found recently meditation. I've got a bit of a brain that jumps around, so having a bit of quiet time each day and centering myself has been really useful.
Do you use an app or do you just meditate?
No, I've actually also just started as most people in our industry, 2018 is the beginning of a new year, and I have started using something called a productivity planner to help me get single focused on the key things that are going to drive business.
I like the sound of that. And speaking of which, are there any app systems that you use to stay in control of your workload?
Yeah, again, just the productivity planner is my main one right now. It helps me focus on one thing at a time. It's got a really simple thing where I focus for 25 minutes on one task, and if I get distracted, I've got to reset it. So it's teaching me some really good discipline.
Is it actually called a productivity planner, or has it got a different name?
No, that's it. It's called the productivity planner. You can Google it.
Is it free?
It's not free. It's a little diary. It's a little day planner that you buy. It was $25 US, and
it's not an app. It's actually a physical.
It's a physical.
Planner.
It's old school.
It's pen and paper style.
It's pen and paper style. It's quite archaic, but it works. So,
well, whatever works. That's cool. Okay, what's one book, podcast, or blog that you'd recommend and why?
Oh, this is a hard one. At the moment, I'm going to say an awesome podcast called How I Built This by Guy Raz. It's part of NPR, National Public Radio in the US. I find it really amazing being a business owner to listen to how previous people and very successful people have built their business and the challenges and day-to-day hurdles that they kind of have to overcome.
That's cool. Is that across a whole lot of different industries? It's
across every industry you can think of, from Ben & Jerry's ice cream they've interviewed to, Randy Hettricks, who created the TRX, to, airline owners, Richard Branson, you name it. It's very amazing. So, yeah, I would suggest it to anyone who is owning and operating a business.
And such a great podcast name, by the way. I really like that. And Dom, tell everyone, what topic are we going to be focusing on in your main interview next week?
So we're going to be talking about the concepts around behaviour change and understanding what that means, and then how that leads to increasing client engagement. And then if time permits, we'll try to talk a bit around programming and understanding people's movement styles.
Well, I'm really looking forward to that. So Dom, thank you so much for joining us for the Precore Quickfire 5.
Thank you.
Before we finish off today, a reminder that all the resources, the links and the transcript for today's show can be found at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Thank you so much to all of our podcast partners for their support and to our foundation partner, Active Management. You can go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/active for a free business development ebook. Thank you for joining me for another week of the show. I'll see you next week, and remember, what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.